Thank you, Chairwoman Bass. I really do appreciate this conversation today, and I wanted to sort of start my questioning with Dr. Nagumbi. I wanted to ask you about climate change driving force displacement. I think for a lot of people, they imagine that this is only when there is obvious causes and effect, a drought or a hurricane or wildfires or something massive and traumatic causing people to flee. But I think to some extent, we can think of almost all refugees as climate refugees. People fleeing armed conflict, like in the Sahel or in the Horn, are often fleeing bitter disputes over increasingly limited resources. The story you told about your own family is another example. Sometimes there isn't one major event that displaces people. Sometimes it's the repeated withering of crops every year and the unpredictability of the rain. I don't know your family's plan, but I hear a lot of stories of people who have been farming the same lands for a generation, who eventually decide that their only hope is to move to the cities or to cross borders or to flee in order to be able to feed themselves. How should we be understanding the various impacts of climate on forced displacement and migration, especially when we are trying to make policy to protect refugees and internally displaced people?
Thank you, Representative Omar. And that's a great question. Once again, yeah, displacement is because of many compounding factors. And you talked about land. Many farmers have farmed on that land, and now we know 65% of Africa's land is degraded. Soils can no longer support the health of the crops that we expect, and that means the agricultural sector can't thrive. And even when we put the inputs, we know science is clear that without healthy soils and microorganisms that live in the soil, even the most inputs that you put, then they go to waste. What does that mean? And then you have also the access to land. And even when farmers are farming, these land title deeds are only to the men. Women don't have access to the land that they're tilling, the land that they're working on. And then compounded by droughts and all these other flooding, for example, unreliable rains. And without a sense of hope, yes, people move. I've seen peers that moved to the cities. Kibera slum, for example, in Kenya, in my own country, Kenya, and the conditions are no longer better. So we must take a really comprehensive approach to the issue of climate change, because we know the factors that are triggering and this conflict are many. We must take a very comprehensive approach that begins with the land, that begins with also financial interventions, that we also help families. When you've been living in abject poverty, even when you're expectant to say, oh, here are the interventions, how are they going to even help themselves? So we must realize that we're also dealing with a population that has already been pushed in poverty. They can't afford even the solutions we are proposing right now. And so I think it's important that as US or legislators make the laws, make the initiatives, having that firsthand knowledge, we must listen to the Africans and work together, I think. And the solutions will come from an improved agricultural sector, energy. For example, Africa, I live in the Kenyan coast. Sun is there 365 days. We haven't harnessed sun, yet people lack the energy. That energy would power drip irrigation. It will power agriculture. So we must take a very broad and comprehensive approach, and no siloing of disciplines and our different sectors. Thank you so much once again.
Well, Ahsanti for that eloquent response to my question. I think one thing stood out for me in your response. It is important for us to recognize that Africans do have these solutions themselves to address the crises that are facing the continent, and if given the opportunity and listen to, they themselves can be the innovators who are coming up with the solutions for a better tomorrow for the continent. So thank you all. And I think with that, we will adjourn our committee hearing. Thank you all to our panelists for your insightful perspective on this issue, the work that you are doing, and the time that you have taken today to come and present and answer our questions. And super grateful to our chairwoman and the committee members who have participated. So thank you all. Have a great afternoon.